everyone. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Sharnael. Welcome.
How's it going?
Going good.
Great. Thank you. So we wanted to start off. I'll just tell our listeners you're a naturopathic doctor, you're an author. You have a lot of other titles that I've seen on your website as well. I'll let you kind of explain those to our listeners. If you could just give us a little story of your background and how you got started doing what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I actually came, my dad was military, moved a lot, traveled a lot. So I've had a lot of different type of cultural experiences and paranormal kind of phenomenal things that have happened, supernatural things. I did not grow up in a very religious type upbringing, meaning going to church constantly and feeling like I'm a bad person if I don't, or I don't have too many memories of that. We did go to church a few times, and I do remember my mom reading like a kid's Bible to me. But when I moved to Louisiana from Montana, this was one of the moves. We moved every couple years. A lot of people went to church here, so I started going to church because I had this encounter at 5, 6 years old of kind of like a hologram had come into my bedroom of this amazing presence that I now know is Jesus. And so I just remember feeling like I just want everybody to know love and truth and how to live their life completely in a loving way. And so I thought, well, when I came down here and people were going to church, there's a lot of things that happened, and someone gave me a Bible and I started reading about this guy, and I'm like, I didn't know too much about him before, and I'm like, he's doing all these crazy miracles. I definitely obsessed with miracles. And there was something that jumped out of the page, a couple of things that jumped out of the page for me. One is something about greater things than these that you will do, meaning like greater miracles than this guy. And I was like, wow, I don't know a lot of people doing big miracles. But like, how does that even happen? What's the formula? And so that kind of stuck out to me. And then also I remember seeing something about we are seated, past tense, in heavenly places. When I looked up the word heavenly, it didn't necessarily mean like somewhere up there in the sky. It was like vibration, frequency, just our being, and how everything has frequency and everything has a sound or a vibe, and really started digging into the actual interpretations of some of the things within scripture. I do know that it's been changed a lot, and there's a lot of things, that have been misinterpreted, mispresented, for the people that want, a certain narrative or whatever. But when I look at the actual words of how should be presented, there's a lot of talk about frequency and vibration. Like even, when we began, there was a word, the word was God, there was light, frequency, sound. Even there's a scripture that talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and all these things. The word wrestle actually means we vibrate not against flesh and blood. So anyway, all of this stuff, I've been very, very fascinated with frequency, neuroscience, physiology, psychology, people in general, and behaviors. So I went the path a little bit for a while as I guess a leader, I don't know, a spiritual guide, someone who was just hoping to connect people back with God and that voice, and have that opportunity to be more intuitive with themselves and to really tap into miracles. But in the process of being on 6 planes a week and traveling to conferences, sometimes up to 40,000 people in one event, and we had a television show we did for 3 years that was on not only United States, but all of North America and overseas. I actually got really sick. Like, I think just really my schedule was too much. I was out of balance. I wasn't eating right. I kind of accumulated into this like really poor lifestyle that I had somehow decided was okay until it wasn't. And then I started having all these dreams and different things about going back to school. I met a doctor that specializes in frequency and, we now know as like biohacking type technology. And he's actually an MD, but he does a lot of naturopathic things. And he was able to introduce me to essential oils and some other technologies that worked for me to physically get myself back into the health that I needed to be in. I ended up going back to school at 37 as a single mom with 3 kids under 7. That was quite an experience. I mainly did it to get more educated, to be able to help and serve the masses as I would travel. A lot of people saw how I shifted and how my physical appearance shifted, dropped 80 pounds, got off all my meds. And they would have, oh, well, what do I do for this? What do I do for that? And I didn't know. So I thought if I go back to school and get my doctorate, I'll be able to help all these people and teach about it. I never had any big desire to have a practice at the time, but I did actually start a practice last July. So I have this practice here, and then I also continue to teach and travel and train. I am not in the whole religion thing anymore. I kind of branched out to more spirituality and combining science and the natural physical body, science with spirituality. And I think that's like my sweet spot of what I really love and am passionate about, is just helping people get integrated. And that word integrated comes from integrity. And so when we're living true and we're totally integrated with, emotions, physical stuff, mental stuff, and we're making good choices, then we get to be on a higher timeline and do our very best version of ourselves while we're here.
Awesome. Awesome. So how do you what is your specialty when you work with clients? What do you like to do to help others heal?
Well, in our practice, we have what I call a lavender lightning technique, or approach, I should say, where lavender meaning all the natural things, kind of the stuff that our grandparents did that maybe got lost along the way when pharmaceuticals came out, making sure we have the right vitamins, herbs, essential oils, anything frequency, good water, not using cleaning supplies that are going to be hormone disruptive, just making sure that we're living clean, pure, lives. And then the lightning part, I love the Tesla stuff. I love the biohacking stuff. Way before things got cool in the biohacking thing, I was already diving in 2008, and, red light therapy, biofeedback, hyperbaric chamber, ozone therapy is a really big one for me. Methylene blue, there's all these things that we can use and utilize into our physical technology to enhance our own technology, because we are all transmitters, we're all receivers, we are electric. I actually worked in cardiac rehab, and my undergraduate was wellness kinesiology, and I did an internship in cardiac rehab. And then I also worked in psych units for a while, again, going back to studying people's behavior, conscious language, thought processes, mindsets, and seeing how all these things tie together. And one of the things that they would say in heart surgery is they could see this blue spark. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of shelved it because I thought that's kind of weird. But later on, I was like, yeah, we're electric. Of course we would have a charge, And so,
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I had a Kundalini awakening in my early 40s. So that would have been over 20 some years ago. And that's what hit me. A strike of lightning is what actually started all the energy centers spinning. It's what caused the rise of the Kundalini energy. And as I'm listening to you talking about frequency, I think you're aware that I channel. That's what I actually do for work. So I'm a channel for a group of beings, and it goes under the name of Athena in Truth. So let me just let them comment a little bit on what we've changed here, and because I think you might find it interesting.
cool.
We are really enjoying the conversation and listening, and we are glad that you are open to the idea of frequency. All of the tools that you are mentioning, yes, they are effective on affecting someone's frequency. But when the frequency reaches the high levels of which your source is a part of, or what you would call love, none of those tools are actually needed. So a human has the ability, through their focus and through their intent, once they understand that they are a frequency being, a light being, you are all transmitters of light. It's what you are. And so how much light gets into your being is largely dependent upon what it is that you are holding within each one of those energy centers, the chakras that are part of the body. Each energy center is representative of an area of your life. And so if you are struggling in relationships and you have some trauma there, perhaps a feeling of abandonment or unworthiness, let's use that example, then you would have repeat experiences as the universe replicates back to you what you are holding that are actually denying its entrance of light because it wants to flow to you. It wants to keep you vibrant. It wants to keep you happy, healthy, passionate. And all of that light would flow right into you, and your frequency would be rising because of it if you were not containing lower tone emotions or layers of experiences that have actually built up inside the being. It's like eating too much food and never eliminating, or drinking too much water in the same thing. So emotional states and experiences are actually building up. They are actually like things, or they take up space in the body. So a human can be a conductor of light by knowing they are made of light. And by focusing upon their energy centers and asking them to open, they can actually pull in or force more light into their being. Therefore, their vibration or their frequency would rise, and then they would not be accessible by products, by lower tone types of things that would make them sick or mentally not well, those types of things. So when the frequency gets to a higher level, by the human allowing more light in, becoming enlightened, so to speak, then the vibrancy just naturally increases because of it. So we are not saying that what you are doing is ineffective. It's very effective. Yeah, it is something that a human can believe in, because sometimes when a human doesn't feel well or things are not going well and they are containing a lot of emotion, they need someone to hand them a tool or extend their hand to them in a direction that would start to make them feel better, would start to allow them to agree to allow more light into their field, and therefore their consciousness would start to rise because of it, and then they would start to feel better and better. So we're a tool. So we're not knocking tools. We are an assistive tool. People sometimes will come to us and they are containing a lot of negativity, and we will assist them in going through the things that they are holding on to that they do not love about themselves. And once they move to the love of self, which is simply accepting themselves and their free will choice of what they have felt in their experience, and stop condemning and judging themselves for anything that they have actually felt, done, or said, whatever it is, yeah, then they open to the flow of the divine light source energy, and their frequency very naturally rises. Good health, vibrancy, passion, prosperity, all of the things that a human is wanting to experience are created the moment that they want them. All of them flow right into them once they become a match to the unconditional love of their source through the love of themselves. That's how we would respond.
Yeah. I definitely see that the joining or the merging of the two things that Dr. Sharnael is talking about and what Athena just mentioned, because there are so many people that need the assistance of some of the tools that you are offering to bring them up and to feel good till their source can, fully take over and move them higher and higher. So I think it's a blending for sure of the two.
Cool.
Yeah. So you've written some books. Is the subject matter of your books all similar, all different? What do you write about?
Yeah, I have 4 books on, I guess, spirituality. And then I do have one book called The 31-Day Keto Reset, which is more about, I guess, physical within the body. But it does, they all work together. I have this saying that you can't pee in the pool and hope it doesn't get everywhere. There is no smoking section. When we work on our physical, it does affect the spiritual. When we work on the spiritual, it does affect the physical, and it affects abundance, it affects partnership, it affects, children. Everything that we do, every choice that we make is a vibration. And as we are picking and choosing higher level choices, then that changes the timeline, and it changes everything within our whole essence of who we are with our vibration. So, but my newest book is The Science of Miracles and Remembering the Frequency of Love. And it really just speaks to an encounter that I had in 2008 with two very large beings of light that showed up to give me all these weird graphs and formulas and colors and just words I didn't know that I had to Google. And I've been teaching about that and how to use things like outcome mapping and some of these formulas that they gave me to create our own miracles. Because again, we have that technology within our field, within our body. And it's just about using and remembering that love and that frequency to create those opportunities and to bring the unseen into the seen. And like every physical thing that we look at was somehow thought of first, and then maybe talked about, and then put to paper, and then created. And we all have those abilities to create. And so, this is our little biofield, our spaceship, our Merkaba, which is also in scripture. And I don't look at scripture as like this is like blah blah blah, but more of a quantum physics thing. And we all have these little spaceships of energy that we contain and that we radiate, and we magnetize within that field. So there's a torrid of a lot of information within the field, and some people's fields are around 4 to 5 feet. Some people I've tested up to 20 feet away, which is pretty interesting.
How do you do the testing? I'm kind of interested.
I do muscle testing. We also have biofeedback. I do blind testing. So I have like myself and other people, we all come back and make sure that we're getting the same thing. But it's interesting on the scale of consciousness that David Hawkins talks about. There's 0 to 1,000. And what I have seen in my studies and my research is that people who are at a higher place of consciousness have a much bigger field, a much bigger amount of influence, and not just because of the words that they're saying, but just because of who they are. And so meaning someone can walk into a room and let's say their field is 4 feet in radius or 20 feet in radius. Anyone who comes within that realm is going to already be activated or feel something if they're aware of it, or maybe they don't. But anyone who's on the lower places of the scale, their biofield is a lot smaller, if not even inverted, meaning they have to siphon off or vampire someone else's energy to feel alive or be alive or generate any kind of energy. And my theory is, I think it's a bit of a safety net there, because obviously if someone has really bad intent and entities and not really functioning in a place of love, maybe they're in manipulation or control or just hurtful people, you wouldn't want them to have a whole lot of influence. We don't want them to, versus someone who is operating in a really high frequency. That I'd love that to be transferable, and this is transferable, by the way. And that's why those who are operating at the lower consciousness and do have that really tiny field and or inverted field, they tend to use other tools to get the job done in their way, meaning social engineering, geoengineering. There's a lot of nefarious technologies that could be used for good that actually Tesla made that were kind of got into the wrong hands now. And they're using things like voice to God tech. They're, changing the weather. They're, all kinds of crazy stuff of, 5G, things like that are not so great for us as electric beings and or cells. And so they'll use things like music and TV, television. Whose vision is it? They'll use, social media. They use politics. They use whatever they can to just say the same thing over and over and over again until it's seated in the consciousness. And some people will pick it up and be like, "Oh, that's real," and other people could definitely hear it and or feel it and go, that is not good.
Doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about people having a more expanded field, are you determining that that's a higher frequency? Is that what that would mean? If you were doing your muscle testing or any of the other techniques that you use, would the expanded field be in a positive direction and it would be someone of a higher frequency? Is that what you're
Yeah.
determining?
Yeah, what I was saying is there's a map of consciousness that David Hawkins had. It is out there. You guys can Google it, look it up. And it goes from 0 to 1,000. 0 is like not good. Really anything below like 200 isn't the best. And then it goes all the way to 1,000, which is like the highest so far that, at least on his test. And so someone in a 250, 200 is the wake up. 250 is when we have courage to actually start choosing for ourselves and not living for other people or being tossed around by the energies, making a stand, having the courage to stand. So the lower energies, like 100, would be addictions. 50 is manipulation and control. Entities and death start at 25 and go down. So someone with lower frequencies does not have a very big field. They have to use electronics and television and movies and
Gotcha.
music and things like that to woo people and entrainment of like a lower vibe versus someone with a really high consciousness. 500 is love. Above that there's even more, and those people have a bigger influence of positivity to be able to help support and or just love people and bring them into their awakening.
Yeah.
So just
So
being in the presence of the higher vibration or frequency, people could elevate people of a lower frequency. Is that possible?
I'm sorry, the beginning cut off a little bit. What did you say?
So, if someone of a lower frequency, say they're in those lower tones of 0 to 100, if they were to be in the presence of someone at the higher frequency, are you saying that that would activate them or bring them out of the lower frequency just by being in the presence of someone like that?
If I mean, sometimes if it's it can cause an awakening. It can cause an aha. It can also cause the opposite, where people are repelled by it and don't like it, which can cause a little bit of a rub. Again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against these frequencies. We're either resonating or we're not.
Yeah,
And,
that's interesting.
and so sometimes, pain can cause an awakening.
right.
It's a tool, it's a teacher, and or a death or a bad diagnosis or a mean person in your life can be the beginning of an awakening, and or a really good person can be the beginning of an awakening. They could siphon off and try to steal, and that's why it's really important for us to be really clear with our boundaries and make sure that we're not just agreeing to things that we don't really want to agree with, and or keeping that really clear boundary. But and then some people are just born to awaken, and they can ignite that Christ consciousness in other people just by their presence, by their words, by their thoughts, by just standing there. But it's kind of hit or miss. It just only depends on the person and where they're at, on if they're going to be receiving in a positive way, or if they're going to be like, oh, that, because especially right now, there's a lot of triggers, there's a lot of reaction, there's a lot of words that people get really PO'd about. And just, I mean, I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but there's a lot of division. Estrangement is up like 500%. Suicide and addictions are up really, really high compared to the 2020 time. And used to, families really supported one another and stayed together, and through thick and thin, you just kind of duke it out and agree to disagree. These days you barely say a comment on Facebook and half the family will block you, and you're like not invited to the family reunion anymore. And so people are very, very reactive right now.
Definitely see some of what you're talking about. So I totally resonate with that going on in society right now, which, when we look back at our parents, Heidi and I have talked to, they didn't do everything right. They weren't abusive. It wasn't like a terrible thing, but they weren't perfect parents. Let's just say that. But it's almost like now there's no allowing, like that for humanness or a few mistakes. I mean, we all make a few mistakes in the raising of our children, but like you said, I've seen a lot of that just cutting off relationships over things that.
Celebrated. It's totally a celebration for people to be like, oh, under the umbrella of self-care, I'm cutting you off. And it's
Yeah.
like, that completely takes away any opportunity to get
Self-heal.
skills and communication or resolution therapy, or, and I don't mean go to see a physical therapist or, an in-person therapist, but I'm saying, I know when I grew up with my sister, if we didn't agree on something, my parents would put us in a room and be like, you guys like talk it out and figure it out. Like, even if it was to walk away and go like, I don't agree with you, but I love you.
Yeah.
These days, I don't think a lot of kids or adults have a lot of skills in resolution at all, or just loving people no matter what. They're just too busy running away from the problem and being like, oh, you're a problem. Well, maybe I'm not the problem. Maybe you're the problem. Or maybe there's somewhere in between. Or maybe I could learn something from you if we took the time to sit down and I could hear more about what you're presenting. And I could give you a little experience of what I had or what I've felt or what I've seen. And we can come up with some sort of in between and still maintain relationship. But it's weird, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
weird.
Well, and to just expand on that a little bit, when they make someone the outside cause, they have no power there. So they're not taking that power to themselves and looking at how they can use that information to heal through their own wounds. Instead, they're blaming, and then it looks like it's not anything to do with them. Therefore, they have no power to fix it because it's outside of their control, which I think is another part of this that is very self-defeating for the people that are doing this. They can't get out of their own misery if they feel they have no control in it.
Well, that's one of the big things that I do in the work that I do is when you blame, you expand what you think is the cause, but the real cause is something inside of yourself that's brought that experience to you. And I'm not saying that the experience isn't real or that you have to like it. There's some very miserable things that people have had come into their lives. But ultimately, every time we feel something in negativity, we're being called to heal. You are forever being approached by that higher source part of you with a flow of experiences that would be very satisfying to you, that were created in the moment that you felt something that you either liked or didn't like, because it vibrates at the frequency of love at a very high rate. So everything you're feeling is accepted in unconditional love, and then it is cultivating experiences that would flow right to you based upon what you sent it in how you felt. So if you decide to hate someone outside of yourself and you make them the cause of an emotional basis that you yourself have within you, the universe is just receiving you in hate, and it can't meet you with what it has created for you in love in the hate energy that you're holding that you think is against someone else, but is really affecting you. Bottom line is everything that we project outward, it doesn't matter what we think the cause is getting returned on to us, because we are creating sovereignly and individually. Every single human is creating by themselves, even though you're interacting with others. The experience that you're having is coming from an inner emotive state inside of you and your view. That's why everybody feels differently. Some people will fly off the handle about something that'll have no effect on someone else, and it's because of the emotional basis that they're actually carrying that is governing their response. So the first thing that I do in sessions and what I teach people is get up in the morning, and when your feet hit the ground, say to yourself, there's no outside cause for how I feel today. And that makes you be awake. And in awakeness, your divinity partner is with you. When you're unconscious, you're in suffering and you're alone, and you believe there's an outside cause, and you're feeling worse and worse, and you're getting more and more experiences that support that. But when you put your feet down and you realize that there is no outside cause, and I'm going to observe myself, and I'm going to look at myself in every experience that I'm having in the way that I'm feeling in regard to it. Now my divine partner is reaching me. So that light energy that we're all talking about in frequency reaches us in observation of ourselves, in awakeness. The divinity part of you knows it's creating by how it feels. So when you start to know how you're creating by how you feel, instead of blaming someone else for the way you feel, you become enlightened. You get light into your field just by being awake. So you're not expected to change how you feel or to govern what was felt in an experience, but you are expected to be awake, to be aware, and to be watching, kind of observing yourself in your experience. That's what my understanding is.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is it's about ego versus, humility and actual consciousness. Like the more we are aware of what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're talking about, and just observing, like you said, instead of taking everything so personal, and you know, uh, uh, that's what just amplifies everything.
Let's
And
go a
on
step further. Where's the ego coming from? It's coming from only having access to the three lower energy centers. So I have the root, the sacrum, and the stomach area. But that's the only three centers that are really receiving a lot of light coming into them. So I have to struggle, I have to effort, I have to compete. I have jealousy, I have rage, anger. All of those types of emotions are the egoic state is located in the three lower energy centers. When I start moving up into the love of myself, I open the heart center and that starts receiving energy. And then I start to recognize that I have something to do with this experience that I am in, and then I can actually influence what I'm getting and how I'm feeling just by receiving more light into my field and that awareness. And so the ego isn't a bad thing. It's not a thing to be gotten rid of. It's a thing
right,
to understand that it's existing in the three lower energy centers because it's needed. When I believe that there isn't enough, when I believe that my partner can be stolen from me or that I don't have enough money, if I have that perception and belief, I need to have an ego. I need to compete with people. I need to work hard. I need to do things to effort in my experience. But when I start to come up into the heart center and expand into the higher levels of consciousness and get more and more light coming into my field, I realize I don't need to do that anymore. And the ego very naturally just starts to fall away.
well, on a brain neuroscience level too, this is your frontal lobe, and behind that is your limbic system. And our limbic system cannot tell the difference between me and you, or time, or space, or anything. And so, when I do something harmful to someone else, my body registers that as I'm doing that to myself. And when I do something really kind to someone, whether it's blessing someone verbally or giving to someone or anything like that, the limbic system says, oh, thanks for giving that to me. And you have all these chemistry, synchronicities that happen and just saturate the whole body
Yeah.
to increase immunity, to give us strength, to hydrate our body, and to do all the stuff in the mitochondria with energy. Versus when we're doing something negative towards someone, that limbic system is like, basically says, that's why it says judge and you will be judged. I mean, give, and it's like you're giving to yourself. When we give good, then it's good. When we give bad, it's bad. Even a bad opinion, even being opinionated and being like, oh, well, you're that, or blaming, all of those things, the body registers it very personally, as if we're doing it to ourselves, because there is no them. We
Right.
are all in one field, and we're all unified, and everything, there's so much illusion to time, to others. It's all just us. And like you keep saying, I always say too, everything's an inside job. We don't have to try to force anybody to do anything out there, and or wait for anything, like you mentioned earlier, from some outside person to do this. But it's all us inside that's creating everything, and making
Yeah.
those shots.
Well,
Right.
you're actually the
So,
perfect guest for us because I think we really align in what we believe completely. Yours is probably more the mental, the chemical, and the scientific part of it. You also have the spiritual side too, but I'm just saying you're relating how the body is actually responding the same way spiritually that it is physically, mentally. It's all connected. It's all the same thing. But I think it's important for people to know that. You are the creator of your experience based upon how you feel, and we cannot use something outside of ourselves as a reason for how we feel and get a good experience. You're giving your power away, is what you're doing. You're never going to be able to have the nice experiences that you want to if you continue to believe that something or someone or some situation outside of yourself is causing you to feel in a certain way. And so that's where the observation of self is really important for one expanding spiritually.
Yeah. So we're running out of time here. So I just want to ask Sharnael if you would provide information if our listeners want to know more about what you do, get a hold of you. You want to share your information?
Absolutely. I have about 15,000 clients online that do biofeedback and coaching and outcome mapping. And we can actually determine a lot diagnostically through biofeedback and then send customized frequencies to you based on what we get in the reports. So if you want to go to drsharnael.com, I have all my books there. My podcast is there. We have a show every Thursday at noon. I have a lot of online classes and that people can, if you can't come see me in real life, you can just be in your own home and take courses right from the computer or your phone. But yeah, drsharnael.com. Matter of fact, if you go there right now, I just uploaded a free course that anyone can participate in that basically will teach you how to clear and how to get the energies really clear in your field so you can have a better, higher timeline and clear out any trauma that may be lodged in the body. But yeah, I got a lot of things coming up and I look forward to maybe seeing some of you guys in real life and or online. I'm on all the social media things, Instagram, TikTok, and, Facebook and all that stuff too. So I'd love to meet you. I love meeting people in person and hugging them and seeing their eyes, but I do appreciate, the digital world too. One thing I will ask is if you guys were watching and you got anything out of this, send me a quick text, or message me and just be like, hey, I'm me. And then I can see you physically and send good vibes to you. And I love being able to see, who I'm talking to. So, reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and just say hi. But thank you guys so much for what you're doing and what you're bringing with your channel and your podcast. And, we need all the help we can get, to get the timeline and a tipping point and to bring love and light and good vibes to the world. And so thank you for your service and what you're doing.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
You were just a wonderful guest. I wish we had more time. I know we were a little
Yeah.
bit limited on time today. Heidi, maybe you want to, well, the one thing I would say is you can check out the website. I do a lot of Kundalini activations. I have a lot of experience in that area. So I do those one-on-one and I also do them in groups. And Heidi will talk a little bit more about that. So there's a lot of stuff on the Athena and Truth website. And I also have a second website called Athena Universe. You can check that out as well. There's some free information on both of them that you might find beneficial. And I'll let Heidi finish up with some of the dates that are coming.
Yeah. So we have an activation coming up April 17th, which is full, and we have 2 other dates. The next one coming is May 15th. So if anyone is interested in learning more about the Kundalini group activations, as Robin mentioned, you can go to our website, which is athenaintruth.com. We hope to see some of you in future activations. And thanks again, Sharnael, for coming on. It was amazing talking to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. God bless you guys.
Thanks.